Welcome back to the show, Courtney and Brigette. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, last time you were here, Courtney, you were expecting child. How old is your child now?
Oh, he's 4, almost 5 months.
Oh, nice.
And we're just dipping back into that sleep regression stage. So that's fun. But we're doing it.
It's been a long time, but isn't it funny? I mean, my son just turned 24 and I still remember the sleep deprivation part of it. Anyway, thank you both for being here. When you were here before, we talked a lot about your podcast that you'd launched, Her Wholeness. And I knew then, although we didn't talk about it in detail, you had plans to expand your ideas and to start to reach different parts of the community through your work. So let's just remind people of your podcast, your mission. And then I know you've had some good success, and there's lots of podcasts out there for people to choose from. So I'm glad they're choosing yours.
Yeah. It's been really fun. So the podcast we launched in July, and we have a weekly episode. We've been, so the premise of our podcast, it's on what we call wholeness. And we think about all of the different things that, come together to make us live optimally. So we talk about mental health, physical health, and how all of those things intersect into what we call wholeness. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the other words for it would be like wellness.
Yeah.
But we really think about living and kind of experiencing the life as whole people. So Courtney and I are both nurses. Courtney's background leads a little bit more into that, being more of an expert in that physical health domain. And then my background leads more into that mental health, kind of into that mental health mindset realm. And then of course we both know about those other things too. So there's a lot of crossover. We've had some episodes on financial health. We've had some episodes on spiritual health. So we just kind of tried to cover the whole gamut, but really focusing on how one domain isn't living in isolation. It's crossing over. Your mental health is impacting your physical health.
It's all encompassing.
All encompassing. Yeah. And so we kind of, so we spend a lot of time talking about that crossover.
Yep.
And one of the things too that I really like about your podcast is it's very organized. It's very thoughtful in terms of how you organize it and what kind of content you cover. Like you'll have a specific series. So Courtney, tell us about the series right now that's airing.
So we're really excited. So the last series that we did, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe the last little mini series we did was on organics. And so that was something that's near and dear to my heart. And so our success from that, we talked it over and said, okay, how do we want to do this differently? What direction do we want to go in next? Again, trying to staying under that umbrella of wholeness. But also having that balance between, we don't want to be too heavy in discussions about physical health when there's such a emotional and mental health need. And so the direction we decided to go with this upcoming series is going to be about really connectedness. So networking, building community, getting connected within that community. It's just something that's really vital toward or in that journey to wholeness that a lot of people really struggle with these days. And a lot of that, we're so quick to be in virtual meetings or text somebody instead of talk to them. And so we're really, as a community and as a society, just really losing out on that connectedness. So this is something that we're going to be discussing in the podcast and actually trying to take some real life action steps to doing that work as well.
Yeah. I think logistically having a podcast, there are a lot of different things to take into consideration. Obviously, your audience being the first, and then what your audience wants. And so one of the things throughout our podcasting journey has been trying to find that perfect balance of like the length of episode, the content of the episode, how we deliver it, and, interviews, number of interviews versus episodes that are just Courtney and I kind of sharing information. And a lot of discussion, and we laugh a lot in our podcast.
I know.
Yeah.
And Brigette, nothing against your laugh, Courtney, but I've been saying Brigette has the best laugh I've ever heard.
Yes.
For a long time. And
very contagious.
Yes, I can hear it. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to dive into this ongoing trend that you have about wholeness, and then also specific to women, an event you have coming up. And also want to hear about the feedback you're getting from the podcast, because I feel like when you're starting out something like that, we have so many choices of what we can listen to, audiobooks, podcasts, whatever the case, what we want to listen to in our ears at any given time during the day. And so sometimes starting out, it's like a lofty goal. How many people will be listening to us? And really, you just have to focus on the one person who's listening, because that's your audience. And then you figure out how to duplicate and scale that by bringing that appeal to whatever it is that you're trying to share. So I want to talk about the growth of your podcast, because some people watching have an idea about something and they don't know where to start. And you can't get frustrated by the smaller numbers. You just have to wait for the people to come organically. So Let's take a break. We'll be right back in just a moment. We're back. We're talking with Brigette Miland and Courtney Sackwar. We're talking about Her Wholeness, which is the podcast you launched a while back. How long has it been now?
July to now. So like
math.
July. So it's July. You launched it this past summer. And you were here talking about that. And I just wanted to talk about kind of its evolution and how have you measured success of the podcast? Because at first we can't look at numbers, right? We're looking at who are we impacting? What is the feedback you're getting?
Gosh, I think that this is such a good thing for anyone interested in podcasting too. I think there are like two different things. Some people can start a podcast with a platform already, and they might be more numbers focused, but Courtney and I don't. We have friends, we have community, we have connections, but we don't necessarily have a platform. Right. And so that is, I think it's really important that you pick what that success marker is going to be. And for us, it has never been numbers, because we don't have any control over who downloads it. Yeah. So some of those things can be like consistency. So we put out a weekly podcast. So I would say that in that way, even just being able to share weekly makes us feel successful. But some of the feedback that we've received has just been so I wouldn't say life-giving. It's been like podcast life-giving. It keeps us going. Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes when you're podcasting, Courtney and I are just talking to each other, and then we hope that it's helpful for other people listening in. And so it's nice when we actually get that feedback back about an episode. And oftentimes we'll get like a text message or a social media message that's just saying how something was really helpful, how like a specific topic really spoke to people, how maybe the way that we talked about something like really resonated with them and made them think about something. And so I think that feedback to us means 1,000 times more than the number of downloads that we get on an episode.
Yeah. And I think I even mentioned the last time we were on your show, that even if one person is helped in some way by this podcast, that's what we see as success. Right. So growth in any capacity, in our opinion, is success. But certainly that the benefit that somebody else is getting from our education or our life experience is success. And so at this point, I think we can say we have been successful. We want to see continued growth. Right. And as Brigette said, it can be a little bit tough to make sure that we get an episode out every week, because we both are busy. We've got busy lives. Everybody's got busy schedules. So getting it out every week, I think we've done a pretty good job.
And we edit the show ourselves. So, and that was something that I didn't really consider how much time that would take when we took that on. And it's a timely endeavor.
It's a timely thing. And what isn't, as a creative myself, it doesn't really matter whether it's a book you've written or a podcast you're launching or this television show that I host. I feel like, I remember when my first book came out, I said, if it just helps one person, I'm not doing it for the money. Yeah. And I remember my sister-in-law at the time challenged me. She's like, come on, You don't really want to make some money. And the thing that is the truth is it takes a lot as an author to be one of those people who makes enough money to pay the rent or the mortgage or whatever, or to allow you to be a full-time writer. That was never my goal. My goal was to help people. And what I've learned about being a writer or a podcaster or a television host is it's kind of the stuff that goes on in the back of the room where you make your money, like the books you sign at the back of the room or the speech you give because somebody read your book or whatever that is. So the money comes if it comes. But if you're really in it for the storytelling, then you have nothing to worry about because you're good storytellers. You're doing a very good job of that. And I think it's important to keep that in mind when you set a goal for yourself, because it gets in the way sometimes from people even moving forward.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the event you have coming up, and let's talk more about community. And you're talking about the series coming up where you're talking about community and networking and bringing people together, but you've planned an actual event that is coming up in April. So let's talk about that specifically. And was this something you kind of had an idea you would do eventually? You started with a podcast and now you're starting to hold events and trying to bring people together through community, through your podcast and other ways.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so I think that what you were just sharing is the perfect segue actually into this. So we've been able to share content, and I feel like add value in an educational way. But what we've wanted from the very beginning was to bring people together face to face and start building those connections in that way. And with the medium of a podcast, we just aren't really able to do that without already an existing platform. And so, so we have this education component that we want to carry into our event. And then and then we have two other pillars for the event, which is networking, which I think goes hand in hand with collaboration. I really love the name.
Always loved that word.
I love collaboration. It's like one of my favorite concepts, words. I love it. So networking, collaboration, and then the second pillar would be community. And then our third pillar is education. So that's what so this group will be essentially a meetup, a networking group, but with this kind of organic
structure.
Yeah. Structure. Right. Yeah.
And you're calling it Women in Wellness. So tell me, Courtney, then what can people expect, people who want to attend this event? We'll get into the details of the when and where, but what is the goal? I know Tara Anderson is one of the speakers. She's a physician here in our community, and she's been on this show, and she has a wealth of information. So I know that she's one of the speakers, but tell us just what we can expect from our time there and what your goal is.
Yeah. So as Brigette mentioned, the structure is there. So again, when we're talking about connection and networking, that's something that we are building into the time and into the agenda. We want to get people out of their shells. We want to get them talking with each other. We want to get people connecting. We have the target audience of people who are passionate about wellness coming to this event. So something as simple as like, why are you here? I mean, gets that ball rolling on people just discussing, do they have a business that we can start supporting as a team? Are you just here because you want some additional education? Well, hey, I know we're learning about this today, but I also have a friend who works in this, under this umbrella as well. So networking is definitely going to be a huge part of it. As Brigette said, the educational piece is not something that we want lost either. We want it to be valuable for people. So even if you don't feel like you made all the connections in the world and it's the first time, so people get nervous and maybe aren't their full self just yet, you can still walk away feeling like you've gained something extremely beneficial. And so the educational piece is definitely going to help with that. And we are so very lucky to have Tara as our first keynote speaker. Is that what we're calling him?
Yeah, sure.
She is just this wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure Brigette can probably piggyback off this, but I've just always been very impressed with not only what she has to share and all of the information that she has and wants to share with other people, but just how human she is and the connection that she has to wellness and really the journey to wholeness as well. She's just a wealth of knowledge, and she has a really great way to deliver that knowledge. And so we're super excited that she, one, even said yes. And then the content that she's bringing is going to be extremely beneficial. So networking, education, and there's going to be brunch. So there's like no way you can lose when you have
there's
brunch,
food,
right?
There's food and conversation and all the things that go along with that.
Exactly.
So what is, what I know Tara, like we said, she has so much information she can share. I just want to take a break. When we come back, let's talk specifically about what people can expect to hear from her,
Sure.
what they would be coming for. And then, we'll wrap it up. We'll be back in just a moment. We are finishing up now with Brigette and Courtney. We have been talking about Her Wholeness, your podcast, your community event that's coming up April 22nd, Saturday, April 22nd. It's a brunch from 11:30 to 1. $25. You get education, connection, and food.
And comedic relief.
Yes,
Comedic relief. Yeah.
Now, we were talking about Tara Anderson, who will be a speaker at your event, and she is really supportive of the community, and has her own practice now. And one of the things that my experience with her has been is just how she can really help us educate ourselves about empowering ourselves in our own healthcare and having our own voice. And let's speak to that a bit, because primarily she'll be focusing on primary healthcare and building that relationship and finding the right primary provider.
Yeah. So she really is, her talk is going to be a lot on, I think she's going to do a little bit of education on gut-brain axis, kind of like that sort of health component. But the main takeaway message from Tara is going to be about finding a provider that really cares for you and listens to you and is willing to advocate for you. So
one of the things that I think is really important, I've just built an online course that's, you're familiar with it, Brigette, that I've been sending you stuff for months for your input.
It's amazing.
Thank you. But one of the things that we talk about a lot in the course is the whole overall theme is building a team of trust with your provider and having a succinct, informed voice in your healthcare. Now, I'm not stereotyping surgeons, but my surgeon doesn't necessarily need to have a great bedside manner. I just need a brilliant surgeon who does all the things in the operating room, right? Mm-hmm. But my primary care provider and specialty, but especially my primary care provider, has to care about me on a personal level. Mm-hmm. They should care about us, because primary care trickles into every other aspect of healthcare you will possibly ever need. So as both nurses, what can you say to people about just that importance of not giving up till you find the right provider, and also taking responsibility for your communication in that relationship?
It's exceedingly important. Okay. It's Courtney. It's very important. This is something that is near and dear to my heart as well, because I hear time and time again, thank you for this information. You helped me understand this so much better. And, my follow-up question is, okay, well, what did your provider tell you? Or, well, did you not feel comfortable asking questions? And a lot of time that's the answer. They told me all of this information. I didn't feel comfortable asking questions. So I just kind of accepted my diagnosis and that plan of care. And then found out down the road that it's not going to work for me. So again, this is something that happens in healthcare all the time. It's, people are intimidated when they go to their doctor or their primary care provider. And it's kind of unnecessary. But again, a lot of medical providers have a very short window of time to get as much information as possible to you. But it might not be what's actually important to you. So having a primary care provider that listens to you and that you feel comfortable saying, hey, wait, I don't understand that, or that's actually like, great, thank you so much, but I'm not interested in that. Like, this is what's important to me and in my life right now. Unless they know that, they can't help you live life optimally, right? They can't help you reach the goals that are important to you. They help you reach their goals. And that's kind of the difference with just going and accepting healthcare versus being an active participant in your healthcare.
Well said. Yep.
Most definitely, because I think it's very difficult. In the module 1 was with my primary care provider, and we talked about the person who comes in who undershares, who doesn't give enough information, that you really kind of have to pull it out of the person. So and as a patient educator for myself for many years, when somebody comes to me and they have complaints about their primary, right away, I want them to think about, okay, am I taking the opportunity to make sure this primary care provider gets to know me? So if you're going in with the flu and you need a Z-Pak, it's probably not a great time to be spending a whole bunch of time making sure you're getting to know each other because you don't feel well. But as a woman, I have an exam every year that lasts several minutes, and there's a lot of awkward silence if you don't find things to talk about. So that's when I take the opportunity to mention my son or mention something about this last year or whatever it is. And over time, my provider has gotten to know me just as any provider can get to know their patient. Now, some of providers are better at that than others. We know this. But if we are looking for that relationship, we are one half of building that relationship.
And one little thing that I talk about in the podcast, I can't even say how many times I've mentioned this in an episode, but the concept of we vote with our dollar every day, right?
For sure.
This translates into healthcare as well. So
Absolutely.
You vote with your dollar every day. You essentially are paying for these services in some capacity. So if people are running and there's a mass exodus from this model of healthcare that we have, and people running to holistic providers or nurse practitioners who spend a little bit more time than they do in the medical model, what does that say? It tells the medical model, we need to change because this is what people are wanting. This is what people are doing. This is what people are paying for.
And a lot of people don't think of healthcare as a marketplace. You get to, you wouldn't keep going to the same hairdresser that did your hair horribly, in your opinion, would you? You would find a new hairdresser, anything, a mechanic, whatever the case. It's the same with healthcare. So we have just 1 minute left. Let's remind everyone the event is taking place on Saturday, April 22nd, 11:30 to 1, $25. Your website, I'll put that here, Her Wholeness, but the event is called Women in Wellness. Anything else you want to say to people before we wrap up here about your event?
we really hope that you come if you have any sort of passion in wellness. And I think oftentimes we think about wellness as being like nutrition or something like very physical or yoga, or we think about it in this
medical spa.
Yeah. And so we just kind of want to reiterate that we're looking at wellness across that big continuum. And so if that's something that you're interested in, even one, what we would call like one domain of wellness, then you're welcome, and you should come and
you'll be at the right
network
place.
and
you'll be at the right
see what it's about. Yeah.
Well, thank you both for being here. I'm excited to hear about all the growth you've had over the last months, and I will be at your event. So thank you.